Hello, everybody. Veritas here. I just like to proceed today's episode with a shout out to YWIDA. I've teamed up with him. He's given me this platform to speak to you guys. New YouTube channel. It's at WIDA_vision, VISION. And so again, that was WID as in David A_vision on all platforms. If you're a creative and you'd like to feature here, we're looking for content creators, artists, designers, musicians, developers, and much more to get involved. So get in touch if you have talent that you'd like to share and work with some other like-minded creative individuals. The link will be in the description. Okay, so to get started on today's episode, so as promised, there's a method to the madness in the way that I've been doing these podcasts. And as I've mentioned several times in other ways, my goal here is, so I'm going to have 22 total episodes, and they're not really training programs or anything. They're not designed to teach anybody any specific way to do anything. But ultimately, the goal of these programs is to provide you guys with the ingredients so that you can access the source within yourselves to a greater degree with any of the information that you choose to use that is shared. And that source is the force of the creator being. And so the whole reason for these podcasts is to really help others identify the thinking and the behavior patterns and the value systems that are associated with that of the creator frequency and that of the consumer frequency. And as we progress through them, you'll really find that, Confucius once said, I do not create. In other words, I don't do, I just transmit. And that's very, very true. And so really what we want to do is over our life, and we've grown up, we went from being this baby that was full of the creative force. And in a very short period of time, I mean, you're basically born in an alien world and you can't speak. You don't even know how to tune into the frequencies to move the digits, your fingers, or anything like that. You have to figure out everything. Can you imagine just being dropped on another planet in another body where you had to learn all of the frequencies to move it, to communicate, to understand the people, and nobody could talk to you? You don't even have anything to relate anything on. That requires a massive creative ability. And what happens is we have that creative force when we're younger, and we develop what people call the ego by the time we are 7 years old, the identity. And ultimately, what we think is our identity is nothing more than a collection of beliefs and values about that get more and more defined as we age, that tell us what we are. And when it tells us what we are, it's telling us what we can and we cannot do, and it really limits us. I don't know if you've heard, and I've seen this myself as an example of people. I was thrown in the water, my brother, my sister, my cousin, as kids. We were obviously old enough to be able to move our body enough so that we could, move our limbs effectively, but we were thrown in the water and we immediately dog paddled. We didn't have to be taught how to do that. But then there are many people who were not given that opportunity, and they get older and they've never swam, and they think you have to learn how to swim. And one of my friends once jumped in a pool with everybody, and he had to get rescued by one of my other friends because he was drowning, because he had adopted the identity and the belief that he was limited and defined, and that one had needed to learn how to swim. And therefore, when he went in the water, he couldn't swim. And so when we're born, we have this massive creative ability, and we don't have the concept yet of what an identity is. And that identity is actually what I would call pride. There's so much dogma associated with the vernacular that is used by people that we automatically have values and feelings attached to many words that doesn't necessarily correspond with the true definition, in my opinion, is of the word. And we'll take, for example, the word pride. Pride is, if you look up like where it came from, pride just means an unreasonable evaluation of oneself. And the reason it's unreasonable is because what pride is it's not really a thing as much as it is an evaluation tool that is utilized by the individual to identify their identity, what they believe they are or they are not, and their value system, so that they can determine what the next thing to do is. But the problem is that pride is rooted in the past, and that's why it's unreasonable. Can you imagine a child who's filled with that creative force, who's learning how to move and walk, they fail pretty much they fail pretty much all day, every day, as they're learning to do all these things. And by the way, we all did those things, and so I want to kind of make sure to elucidate here to the listeners that when I'm talking about having a creator mindset or a consumer mindset, it will always be a frequency. Okay, so it's not like, hey, I'm a creator being because I have a creator mindset, and this person is a consumer mindset. It is a frequency of to which degree in that present moment your belief systems, your thought process is equating itself to a certain percentage of being a creator being and another certain percentage of being a consumer being. In fact, we'd actually get ourselves in trouble if we start labeling others as some people say soulless or zombies or asleep or less than kind of consumer people. That's a consumer. I'm a creator. Now, while it is true that there are many of us that are more awake presently and more in a creative mindset, in a creator mindset and growth mindset than others who are more in a consumer mindset, one has to remember this. The source is at the center of all of us. And the proof is that even the people that seem to be the most closed-minded around you, the most consumeristic in their mental faculties and things like that, the most closed-minded, they all learned to, those who had the physical ability, they all learned to walk. They learned to move their body. They learned to communicate. They learned to speak. They learned to dance. They learned to run, just like you did. So really the difference between I and someone else who may be of a lower frequency has nothing to do with them being soulless or anything. It's just that in their life, and for those who believe in previous lives, perhaps they've, in their soul, accumulated a belief paradigm that limits it in some way. But it's adopted. It's a learned behavior. At the center of us all and all things is my belief is the almighty power of God. And that some of our brothers and sisters have just adopted a belief system about what they are and what they are not from the outside world that has basically, if you think about like a circle of you, and at that very core is God, you can almost think of it as a mustard seed, but it's the most powerful, brightest light. It's got infinite intelligence, infinite everything. You can create all things from it. But around that is a bunch of walls. And every time the person defined themselves further and said, I am this, or I am that, or I need this, or I want that, they basically cut themselves off from their source. But we must remember that all of us were these babies, and we fell and we fell and we got up again, And I want you to kind of think about the reality here is it's not that any one of our brothers and sisters is quote unquote evil. And for anybody who's listened to my previous podcast, you would note that to me, the definition of evil is living backwards. It's instead of having your future higher self and God and the universe drive you forward in the most creative possibilities, which means to not hang on to old beliefs, but to continuously seek to change oneself, which would be humility. They live in pride, which is an unreasonable evaluation of oneself. It is actually what casting a judgment on yourself is. That's another one of those words, like pride, that has this kind of dogma associated with it, where you would actually feel, people would feel bad if you said you're acting prideful, because they don't look at themselves as a separate being that's in a continuous learning, growing, and creative state. Instead, they think their identity is somehow tied to the past. So actually, the most prideful people will feel the most attacked when you use the word pride to them. And ultimately, the people that are being prideful, they are no worse than anybody else. They just have a series of beliefs that has told them that their identity is tied to their past behavior. And so that's all they're missing is just the illumination in order to uncover that. And let's look at the word judgment. So let's, to really get to the root of what a judgment would be, let's just look at what a judge does. A judge takes a person who committed an act in the past and condemns them to a prison that reflects the behavior of the past. So casting judgment isn't necessarily what I, in my perspective, what some people think it might mean. To me, to cast judgment on another or a judgment on yourself is to define yourself or them by a past behavior and project into the future a condemnation, an imprisonment, an expectation, or a negative feeling based on what they did. And because in the present moment, anytime you look at anything anybody else did, it was in the past. And so when, as far as judgment's concerned, and I'll go into this in later episodes, a lot of, in the Bible, it says, don't judge others because it will be reflected on you. It's actually my belief that it's the judgment we hold against ourselves that ultimately reflects onto the world around us, because subconsciously the mind is trying to protect us from hating itself too much. And so it looks for reasons outside of itself to justify and evaluate itself better. But it all goes back to the fact that we're living at our core, many of us, because this is what we've been trained to do, to use pride, an unreasonable evaluation of oneself based on what other people, and it's always the past. Because at any given time, if you're evaluating yourself in the present moment and you're utilizing pride, which most people do, we're evaluating ourselves based on what we have done, what we haven't done, what we have thought, what we haven't felt, what we thought we could do, what we thought we couldn't do. And that is the prison. And that's why they say pride is actually the deadliest sin. So can you imagine? And pride is a behavior. It's ingrained, I think, in people, in our DNA, to help us to evaluate, what to do next and things like that. But ultimately, it's the deadliest sin because that's what locks people into thinking that they can't change. And in thinking that they can't change, it creates a mindset that they're continuously seeking to defend that of which they were. And they say, if you defend your limitations. Now, can you imagine a baby having pride to the degree that most adults do? Because it gets worse and worse, in most cases, in my perspective, as people get older. So that would mean that none of us would be walking. Most of us would probably be still pooping our diapers. We wouldn't have learned to talk because that baby would have fallen down. Most adults who try something as radically new and difficult for a child as learning to walk, they try something once or twice. They say, I can't do that. And they don't do it again. They label them in their mind, consciously or subconsciously. They accept that evaluation that that's just something they can't do. And it's like Fox and the Sour Grapes. The Fox and the Sour Grapes is an Aesop fable where a fox is trying to get these grapes and he can't get the grapes. And after a few tries, he thought the grapes were delicious, kept jumping. He's like, I want these grapes. And then when he couldn't get the grapes, he finally said, ugh, those grapes were probably sour anyways. And that's one of the scary things about pride, is that our body and our mind will try to defend us from feeling bad. So it will justify things for us. And it will justify by pointing to whatever it is that we wanted and saying, oh, I didn't want that in the first place, or blaming somebody else or something like that. And it all happens almost automatically, but it's all rooted in pride. And again, that's why pride is the deadliest sin. And if any one of you guys, if any one of us had that level of pride that most adults do, and the unreasonable evaluation of themselves based on accepting past failures as an indication of the lack of future success, then the baby would fall down a couple times and determine, I am a baby fall downer, never walker. And we can add some other things in there. I'm a baby follow downer, poop my pants, never walker. And we would all just be sitting around, pooping our pants, and rolling around on the floor maybe, if we didn't give up on that. So it's really important that as we look to raise our frequency, that and become creator beings, that we target the most important of the sins, and from which all the other sins are able to exponentially affect our lives in a negative way. Because, and here's another word that has dogma with it, the word humility. It sounds so much like humiliate. Humility sounds, and I had a lot of difficulty with this in my transformation process, because I said, well, what does it mean for me to be humble? That I don't believe in myself? You know what I mean? Do I become selfless? And it seemed like that was my only choice, right? I thought all I have is either selfless or selfish, so I chose selfless. And I didn't realize this, but subconsciously I was denying my own will. And you can only give to the world that which mirrors what you give to yourself. So as much as I was trying to give to the world, I was sacrificing and taking from myself. And so what I want to get into here with you guys is what I found to be the key, one of the keys for me in reprogramming my soul, my thoughts, my mind, body, whatever you want to call it, so that it allowed me to access the creator force and diminish the amount of consumer force that flowed through me and that I transmitted. Because that's ultimately what it is your belief system tunes you in to a certain degree of consumer force and a certain degree of creator force. And that's why the gifts of the Holy Spirit are courage and wisdom and serenity and joy and stuff like that, because the creator force is is the Holy Spirit. It's like it's where like all your good feelings come from, and the consumer force is a destructive force, and so it begins with hunger, envy, wrath, or sloth, um, or gluttony. It's like, hate and anxiety and fear and doubt, because it's this feeling that you are a consumer, that you are a needy being. And so I had a really good friend ask me yesterday. He said, "Well, Brian, I'm confused. So what would be constituted as a need? You know what I mean? Like, how do you like? And it does seem confusing. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Get rid of my needs?" And as I said in a previous podcast, needs by themselves are not evil. They are part of creation. They say necessity is the mother of invention. So that means that needs are the mother of invention. Some could say the female energy, the magnetic energy. It is a fundamental part of creation, because, and it's actually by its very nature, it's selfish. It's self-centered. It has a desire. It has a need, which is necessary for creation. So need by itself is not bad. So what makes need evil? Need becomes evil because if that's all you associate yourself with. If you associate yourself with just the aspect of the Trinity that makes you, then you will forever have an unsatiated need. You will be seeking outside of yourself in the world for it to give it to you. And as I briefly mentioned in another podcast, the outside world is a reflection of you. It's a mirror. It can tell you if you have crumbs on your face. It will not wipe them off for you. You have to know that you can wipe them off yourself. If you think you are the reflection, you're doomed, because you'll be like, the reflection's not wiping the crumbs off the face. It's a two-dimensional lower aspect reflection of yourself. You have to be able to deal with that. So need is not the problem. It's having a need and not calling forth the creative forces within you to accomplish that. So a lot of people in spiritual communities, and myself included, I tried to go selfless, and it backfired on me big time. What would happen is I would think I had it all figured out, and I'm so happy, and eventually my will would project and explode out into the outside world. And I had these ups and downs during my transformation process that were pretty intense. I would go from being really happy and then really depressed, and I couldn't understand it. I'm like, I'm being as selfless as possible. Why is this happening to me? But if the world is a reflection of you, and you're being selfless and you're denying yourself, then the world will deny yourself, and you'll become a victim. And then you'll believe that you're getting victimized, and you'll have this belief that the world's victimizing you. And then the inverted reflection of that is that something will victimize you. That's why Jesus says, resist not evil. It's really kind of crazy, but I think of the universe as kind of like a genie, and you get and that's why they say, be careful what you wish for. You literally get exactly what you ask for, but it's inverted. And so we have to be a creator being in this world, we have to understand the keys. We have to understand the secrets. We have to understand how to shape in the mirror, that it's ultimately an inverted reflection of us. And the problem is that encoded in all of us is in our DNA, which I'll do in another episode about the sins and everything like that. But ultimately, and I'll explain why, but greed, envy, wrath is programmed into our DNA, because actually I'll just get into it now. All right, so I'm gonna give you guys an example why the things are the way they are. So evil is not having a need. Evil is having a need that you don't believe that you have the ability to feed. So as I was saying, need is the mother of invention. And everybody's living backwards, thinking they're just the body, they're just the need, they're just the past. And so when you live backwards, live spelled backwards is evil. And when you don't get rid of what got you out of Egypt, you can't get into the that no longer serves you. You can't get into the promised land. So when you take away that you lived in the past, and you don't let go of it and let it just go out there with those ripples, let it go. You're constantly sending ripples out to the universe. Drop those little circles that no longer serve you, and let them just wash away with the ripples until they just dissipate. Just let it go. It's not about learning any profound thing. It's about basically coming to the understanding that what you thought was you, what you thought was your identity, what you've been clinging to for so long is nothing more, in some cases, when it's detrimental to you, thought forms and belief paradigms that need to be let go. If you don't let them go, how you lived, your past, your lowest vibration, your needs, your limits, are leading the ship. And like in the Bible, they say the tail is leading the head. And because you don't let them go, the way you lived is now driving you, which is backwards and upside down. and lived spelled backwards is devil. So, and that's why in the previous podcast, and a lot of my podcasts too, what I was trying to do is give you guys a lot of different information so you could use it as ingredients to bring to your current belief system, because things change from the inside out, and at the root of everything is your I am, what you believe you are, your value system. And I wanted to give you guys enough new perspectives and information so you can kind of radiate this outward instead of just saying do this or do that. It's really important that people come to the understanding, because if we don't understand it, then it won't radiate outwards, and we're working in the realm of to do. So I say that, and all right, so we get it, right? So the consumer force is rising up, the selfish force, the magnetic force, what they call the female force, but not to be related with men versus women or anything like that. But that force, it has the need, and if it's included in the Trinity, it's not evil. But when we think that's all we are, when we think we're just a body, when we think we're just a past, that's when it's damaging. That's when it's dangerous. You know, if you think about it, right? So needs, if my body needs water or food, but I also have plenty of water and food in my refrigerator, it's not real. It doesn't become a need anymore. It just becomes a desire, something I would like to do. I would like to eat some cucumbers, or drink some water. And a true need is you're in a state of deficit. You think you're missing something to be satisfied. You're in actually, it triggers a fight or flight response. And I will say this, and I'll get into more real specific actions to do, but watch your words. I suggest watching your words. The word need, whether we realize it or not, when we grew up, we in our subconscious, it understands that need means that you are in a state of duress, that you are somehow missing something and you won't be satisfied until you get it. And need becomes evil when someone needs to drink water or eat. And let's say imagine you have a team of people, they go off on this desert hike for some reason, and for whatever reason they decided not to bring enough water. They could be the best team of people, maybe they're all coworkers or something, 15 of them. They've always got along well. And then, like a Lord of the Flies situation, they get lost in the desert and they're running out of water. And some very interesting, what we would consider to be evil things would happen as a result of that. The longer they were out there, some crazy things can happen. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the story of the Donner Party, but they were these group of people traveling to get into California. They hit a snowstorm. This is back when everybody had the wagons and stuff like that. And they got stranded, and cannibalization ended up happening. Pretty terrible stuff. And there's a lot of stories like that, or mutinies would happen on ships and things. So evil it stems from the need, but so does in creation. So what's the problem? It's when you don't realize that you have this creative force inside of you that has the answer to all things. And it's my belief that we were indoctrinated and we were trained to be this way, so we would be consumers. I mean, we're literally called by the elite that we're called consumers. Consumerism, as if it's a good thing. And so we're always insatiated because we've been taught and have accepted the belief that everything that we need outside of us to be, in order to be happy, we need things outside of us to change. And we all know that's not true. Because as babies, besides when, someone had poop or pee in their diaper, or they were hungry, they were pretty happy babies, and you were failing like crazy, and most people make more accomplishments in the first 7 years of life than they do in the rest. So that means that you all had access to that creative force. And the only difference between having it and not is based on the belief systems that we've accepted in an identity, and creating a system of pride in which we utilize in order to determine whether or not we can do something. And that's really what we need to let go. And that's why pride is the deadliest sin. So I want to start making these podcasts a little shorter. So I'll have one that will just continue from here after this. But so I would say the first thing that you want to do, and the number one step into becoming a creative being, is to become humble. And the word humble does not mean, it means the opposite of what some people think it means. It doesn't mean that you believe that you don't have the capability to accomplish and satisfy all of the needs that come from your body. It's actually quite the opposite. It's knowing that within your core is the answer to everything, and all you have to do is but ask. So humility is understanding that you have within you all of the power of the universe to create everything that you desire. And so a consumer mindset is someone who believes they need to have. Creator mindset is someone who desires to, for example, And this is, I would start changing my wording. So instead of saying, "Oh, I need to eat," I would say, uh, I look forward to, or I'd like to, or I'd love to get some food right now. Give love to everything. Seek to be to accomplish that of what you want. So it's not about burying your needs. Some of the needs that we have are not real, so we want to let go of the ones that no longer serve us. Like if someone thinks I need to eat a bunch of Snickers bars, and they know that eating all that sugar promotes an overgrowth of the parasitic consumer organisms within themselves and causes a whole host number of problems, they don't truly need the Snickers. They've just developed a belief system that told them that they need the Snickers. So working on dissolving those over time is helpful, and realizing what it is your true desires are. And as you work through this process, you'll begin to become more in touch with your true will. And it takes some time, because you're going to have to dissolve a lot of beliefs of things that you thought you needed, because we were kind of programmed that way to be consumers. So it takes some time. Don't get hard on yourself or anything like that. What I'm trying to do is just give you guys an understanding, so that when you're listening to your thoughts, when you're being present in the moment, and to me, being present in the moment isn't necessarily, in my case, staring at a piece of grass, but rather being present within my thoughts, being able to hear them, being able to acknowledge them, being able to listen and ask myself, is the thought that's coming out a thought of a being that thinks it needs something that it doesn't have the creative force within to create a solution to get? Does it feel that it's in some kind of state of duress, or um, or is it, and if it is, then I just change it. And I say, what would Jesus do? What would a creative being do? So if it says, oh man, I need to eat, well, one, I would try to stop saying that, because in most cases we don't need to eat. We would just like to eat. And the more we do that, we remove the spells that we're casting on ourselves whenever we say those things. I would try to remove need. I would listen for the thoughts in your head, and when it does say it needs something, just gently correct it, and say. And one of the things that I used to do is, when I would get anxious, I would always know it's because some part of me, some thought form, some belief paradigm still believed that I couldn't be without anxiety in the present moment, without something that I thought it needed. So I didn't want to repress it. I would call it forth. I call it asking outside, which is asking the outer self, asking one of those past thought forms, what is it that you think you need that we can't accomplish right now? And it would answer me, and I would go back and forth with it and say, well, we don't really need that. Like, so if I'm driving, it says, and it's anxious, I say, what do you think you need? Oh, I need the traffic to stop, or my friend or something like that. This, I don't really have this as an example. It's getting harder for me to do these things because I don't really have them anymore. But let's say, I'll just make up something. So if, let's say, my friend was supposed to help me move, and now the moving day's here, and he calls me last minute and says, I can't help you move. And then let's say I start getting frustrated, I would be like, okay, so what are we frustrated about? I'm not going to ignore the feelings. I want to hear the feelings, because the feelings will give me an opportunity to learn something about myself, where I thought some confused idea that I believed that I deserved to ever feel bad at any given moment, especially because of someone else's actions that isn't physically assaulting me, because that's an illusion, and you should not have to feel bad. It's something that's tied to, and I'd say, oh, I'm mad because my friend, I always do things for him and blah, blah, blah. And I would say, okay, I understand that you're trying to protect me, and I programmed a belief in the past that these type of things, I needed to be able to get angry about. And, I'm grateful for that. But how is us being angry about this right now in any way making our day any better? And it wouldn't have an answer. I'd say, all right, so I know we feel this way. How do we want to feel? Well, we got to move. We got to move our furniture. So what do we choose? And you could choose whatever you want. I'd say, what do you choose? Do you think it would be best for us to stay angry because of some other action someone else did that's already in the past that has no bearing on anything in this moment? And now we're double attacking ourselves. So we're missing a person to help us move. But in addition to that, we think that we deserve to punish ourselves because of what that person did, and now suffer even more. Suffer because of that. And it'd be like, no, I don't want to feel that way. I'd say, okay, well, this is great. This happened. We just learned something about ourselves. We had one more opportunity to realize that what somebody else does shouldn't affect us and ever make us feel bad or suffer afterwards. Wow, what a great experience. I'm glad we got to experience this. Let's get moving. How do we want to feel? I want to feel motivated. I want to feel energetic. We're moving into a new place. We have a new change. We have a new experience. All right, want to feel that way? Who has control over that? We do. Okay, let's feel great. What would someone who feels great and excited and motivated do right at this moment? I don't know. Instead of pacing around in circles, staring at our phone, and being angry that our friend just texted us that, perhaps we'd, if they want, get a coffee, get a cup of water. Ask yourself, what would we do if we were in this great state of mind right now? And there's like Pavlovian thing. If you smile, for a minute, it will make you feel better. If you ring a bell, the dogs will drool. So, one of the easy ways to transfer yourself out of that is not just saying, I should be happy. Ask yourself, what would I be doing? How am I feeling? I'm feeling this way. How do I want to feel? How would I be acting if I felt that way? Okay, what can I do about it? And then do it. That's what a creator mind does. And right now, all of us, and we will forever be in this state, because no matter how well we think we are for yesterday, the world will always bring us new stuff. So a creator mindset is just forever being present in our moment and listening to the thoughts in our head, which are always coming, that unless it's a solution to a previous question we asked. If it's anything that brings any fear, anxiety, or doubt, it's not to be murdered or destroyed or hated or repressed or avoided or afraid of or anything like that. Instead, it should be gently talked to like it's our best friend. You ever wonder why you can give great advice to other people, but people have trouble giving it to themselves? Is because they haven't separated themselves from themselves and actually listened. They have suppressed their will. We do not want to do that. Being a creator being is not suppressing your will. That means you're afraid of it. Why would we be afraid of any thoughts that could come from our will unless we thought our will was in charge of everything and we had no way to handle it? So I'll give you guys a brief analogy on this, and then I'll pick up where we left off on the next podcast. I'm just going to make them a little bit smaller. I think it's intimidating to have hour-long videos. And I know I'm the same way. If I see it's 50 minutes, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to listen to it, of other people's. But here's something to kind of leave with. So you are a trinity. You are the mother, you are the father, and you are the seed, right? You are the need, you are the desire, and you are the creator, and also you are what's in between. So look at it like a plant, like a seed. Right in the middle, your soul of that trinity is the seed. And the seed has been listening for a long time to the outer self, the body, the ego, the past, the limited aspects of itself that was needy, and it's forever been seeking outside of itself, which is also more needy, which is even further out from itself, to satisfy it. So we've been looking in the wrong direction. We've been living backwards. We've been living evil. What true definition of evil is, which is a need that you don't believe to some degree of evil. Whatever the degree of evil is correlated with the degree in which you believe you need something that you can't have. And it's perfect example. Leningrad, when they were bombing it, those people had to get tried afterwards because they were killing their neighbors and eating them. They weren't doing that before that. It's because the greater than the perceived need was that they had, where they needed something times the degree in which they didn't believe they had the ability to get it, acted itself out in what we would consider evil behavior, like eating your neighbors. So here's a thing to leave you guys with. The mother is the need of the seed. It's the vibration, the magnetic energy, the pulling, which is absolutely necessary. It's a part of everything. We don't ignore it. It's the will, right? The selfish, if you want to call it. And then there's the Father. The Father is within us, and by its nature, the Father is undefined, like energy, unlimited, unneedy. It's selfless. And God in Genesis said God created all and said it was good. He's impartial. Then that's why the universe, God gives you exactly what you ask for. But a lot of people don't know. They're like, I'm not asking for this, because they don't know, because it's their beliefs. And that's what this program that we're working together with is designed to do, is to let you really get to the root, and not with what I consider to be a lot of stuff in psychiatry and psychology, which it's my personal opinion. Much of it is designed to actually program people with the belief that they have diseases of the mind, so that people can then go in, and once they believe that they have this physical ailment wrong with their brain, now they're imprisoned in it, is to do the opposite of that. It's to show you guys that all of you guys, none of you guys were born with depression. None of you guys were born as these super consumer beings or super egos. These were all learned behaviors. And I believe that it's because in the past, and I believe things are changing dramatically. I think we're going into a whole new world, and I'm really excited about it. But the past that we grew up in was inverted. It was upside down. And we were indoctrinated to be these consumer beings. And so So it's important that true humility is knowing that you are a Trinity. That if there's a thought in your head that is a fear of the consumer, it's okay. It's not an evil force by itself. In fact, it's what allows the Father to create. Like God works through us, who are we're in the middle of God and the universe and the selfless energy, unlimited, undefined. But the thing about an unlimited, undefined, selfless, impartial energy is, what would it create if it doesn't need to create anything? We are the vessels that are used to create. So the needs are okay as long as we acknowledge the ones that do serve us and the ones that are lies and that don't serve us. And we align with the right use of will by just, over time talking to ourselves, working through these issues, and especially in our transformation period that will come up, and determining what do we truly want? Who are we truly? And you'll find the more you realize that you have the almighty power of God and the universe inside of you that can literally help you solve all things, and the more you flex that muscle, the more you use that, you're going to find that a lot of things that you thought you needed, you truly don't need, and they will fall away as they always should have, right? And they should. And every single day, we should always just be letting go that which no longer serves us. But if we think that we are just the body, the need, the past, it's very difficult to do that. So you can look at it like this. The mother is the need of the seed, which is necessary, which we could call selfish, right? And then the father is the feed of the seed, which we could call selfless. And the seed is the frequency between those two. But you know what transformation is? The mother is the feed of the seed. Sorry, the mother. True transformation is this. The mother is the need of the seed. The father is the feed of the seed. And the seed becomes the tree when it finally sees it's always been all three. All right, that will do it for this one. So we're just going to pick up. I'm just going to call this one part 1 and part 2 of whatever I decide to name it. All right, talk to you guys soon.